got about 15 minutes, and I know that everybody assembled here this evening could listen to these two gentlemen for hours and be completely enthralled. But in the spirit of the evening, we are both unrehearsed, fair enough, completely, unrehearsed, and yet we're going to be on point. And the point is military transition. We've got two distinguished leaders who've made very different career paths within the military, and their transitions have been very different, and one more longitudinal than the other, and have both blazed big trails in the wake of their service to our country. So I'm going to do less talking and ask a couple of questions to get you guys spun up. I'll start with you, John, but Flo, please follow. John, talking to this group, this isn't really our audience. Our audience is when this gets out of this room and others can be inspired by what you guys have to say and hopefully motivated to take some big actions to do more for the veteran community and the spouses community. What would you say, John, were some of the big challenges that you had when you rolled out of the military the first time and then went back in and then came out again? And what was that like for a senior leader like you?
Well, Scott, as you remember, first, congratulations to you and to General Ray. Congratulations to Guidehouse and to Benz. It's wonderful work that you have done on behalf of our veterans, and we just can't thank you all enough. And it's great to be on the forum with you this evening. So, General Ray and Flo and I all served together at the same time in Afghanistan, so it was a great honor to be with you again today and to see General Ray, and he managed to overcome my leadership example, evidently, because he made 4 stars. I think one of the greatest challenges that I experienced coming out was seeing the reality of how many of our young troops were struggling as they were coming out of the service. I took over the war in Afghanistan at the 10-year point, so we had obviously been there a long time. I had it for almost 2 years, and then the war went on for a number of years after that. And unlike any other country in the world, we really do take care of our veterans, but we can always do more. And I was enormously pleased to see what civil society is doing on behalf of our veterans. Because sometimes the Veterans Care, the VA, it's just completely bewildering, and many of our veterans are struggling to find just guidance. They're not asking for handouts, they're not asking for gifts, they're just asking for guidance on how first they can take care of their families, how they can have a chance in life after service in the military, often a lot of combat service. And civil society has stepped up in many respects to help on this. The nonprofits, there are many of them out there. Highport is here tonight. They're doing great work on transition. But also the private sector. I hope that someone who captured your words tonight about the private sector can get that out verbatim. And that is, look, when you hire a veteran, you're going to get somebody who has committed themselves to something bigger than themselves, which is important for organizations. You've hired someone who swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, so they are people who are committed to the rule of law. They are folks who, in that oath, were prepared to die for something. I mean, their capacity to understand how to be committed is unambiguous. And so when you hire a veteran, and all CEOs, frankly, should be deeply committed to this, you are supercharging your organizations. Because those veterans understand commitment, they understand integrity and honor, they have been under stress, they've probably been in combat or might have been in combat, they bring that into the room, it's unbelievable. And so we just can't do enough for those young veterans who are coming out every single day. So when I came out, I was worried about that. And I joined the board and have helped a number of nonprofits. Day after tomorrow, for example, somebody else we served with together, I'm handing the keys to a new home to a Marine corporal who stepped on a IED, lost both of his legs in Afghanistan. I am on the board of an organization called Homes for Our Troops. Applaud them. Because these kids deserve the kind of support that we can give them. And that house is theirs forever on Saturday morning. But that's the kind of thing that civil society has done, and what you have done and what Benz has done for our veterans is exactly what all CEOs and the private sector should be doing. We can't do enough. Sorry it takes so long.
That's perfect, sir. And it's really hard to piggyback off your outstanding but also accurate comments. I'll give you more of a personal perspective. Obviously, I was injured on August 8, 2012. I had my 2, 5, and 10-year plans were all in the military. I didn't have a backup plan as a civilian. And so when that happened, it's just a reality check. It becomes a crisis identity problem because you no longer can really self-identify in terms of what you mean to your own mission because you don't understand what that mission is. So it took a while for me to really get back on my feet and understand what my next passion and mission would be. I was lucky. I was lucky because I was in a controlled environment. I was at Walter Reed Hospital. I had everything around me, and I had time. All I was asked to do was recover. And so during that period of time, I knew the one thing that I should definitely do is go back to school and get my master's degree, take advantage of that time. And second, I needed a network, right? Because nothing that you do in the military is alone. You always have a team. From day one, the day you go to MEPS, everything, you do it a bunch of group of people, whether it's a crab walk or raising your right hand and taking an oath, or getting on that bus and going to basic training, or boot camp, whatever you call it. And so I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so for me, it's kind of funny in a small world, on plan, the individual that brought me back onto sort of my saddle when it came down to my career is Jared Shepard. Jared, will you raise your hand? So Jared is a... Jared is the epitome of what America is in terms of warfighters. He had a GED, graduated with a GED, went back and got some of his schooling, went into the Army, was an infantryman, was a sniper, decided, you know what, I got to get a little smarter here, went into the IT side. General Odierno, bless his heart and soul, saw talent there and challenged Jared to get out of the Army and said, you're so bright and you have an understanding of what's going on in our infrastructure here in Iraq, why don't you start your own company? So he started Intelligent Ways. Some of you probably heard that company. Incredible success. Followed on, now owns Hypori, one of the most incredible BYOD solution, the best BYOD solution, I'll tell you that right now, on the market for our warfighters. Guess what? He also started his nonprofit. And his nonprofit called Warriors Ethos got me and other folks in 2012, 2013 through some of the hardest times of our lives. So my essence is I lost my mission on August 8, 2012, and I needed help to get me back, on the path to success. I knew I couldn't do it alone, so I needed my network. And one last thing I'll say is it's kind of funny sometimes that once you wear the uniform and you serve, you never stop. And Jared is a really good example of that. And by the way, it's not just Jared. It's a whole team of folks out there that helped us. And they never stop. And they want to pass it forward. They want to push you to success. And so to me, that's something that I don't take for granted. It's gave me a reason for the rest of my life to do a little bit more for others.
Thank you, Florent. That was great. Yeah. It's interesting, you described a very controlled environment at Walter Reed, and I think you've taken appreciation for that controlled environment. Not every veteran separating under even the best of conditions has that kind of controlled environment. It make it more difficult for some people. But it's interesting how heavily you indexed on Jared. Not everybody is a Jared either. But you started by talking about your network and building a network. And it's something that we can reach out, corporations and other organizations can reach out into the communities who serve veterans to help build a network into the corporate world where one doesn't exist. You were able to use a friendship or relationship, somebody you respected and worked with and for in the past. Not everybody has that either. And that bridge building can be very important.
I didn't know Jared.
Oh, you didn't know Jared?
No. Jared, I met Jared because Jared volunteered.
Well, you strongly implied you knew Jared.
Oh, well, I know him now. Yeah, my apologies. But no, he made himself, he got himself into Walter Reed, understanding this is where I need to go help these folks, obviously other places. But I was lucky enough to be in that controlled environment where I had access versus exactly what you're talking about. A lot of my peers and friends and soldiers that served under me do not have that access, and they're completely lost.
And we all know, the network is incredibly important. I think those of us who are in networks sometimes don't appreciate the power and the impact that expanding that network could have to people who need to be oriented. That's wonderful. John, let me ask you this. If you were you've given me a lot of advice over the years. I've taken a lot of advice and counsel from you. What would you tell me and other CEOs who really already value the impact that veterans can have on the organization? But what advice would you still give us to expand our efforts and to be more effective at attracting and retaining our nation's top talent?
I have been in the last several years asked periodically to come into companies and take a look at them, either to offer advice on how to do better or to offer advice on how to stop the free fall. And invariably, my number one piece of advice is whatever you're doing that's right, in your case, is a function of leadership. And the stronger the leadership across the board in a corporation, the better it's going to do. When I go to a company that's in trouble, I can tell you almost immediately walking through the door without talking to anybody, I'm going to find a major leadership problem. Now, I raise that because when you hire an NCO, a retired NCO or a former NCO or a wounded NCO or a petty officer, when you hire them, you get enormous experience in leadership. You just can't pay enough for that. This is one of the, I think, the great secrets of hiring veterans, beyond the technical skills you often get with veterans. The thing that you always get with a veteran is both an inherent leadership that they bring to the table, but a willingness and an interest in doing better, improving themselves, and very importantly, leading those around them. So that that group that they touch within the organization, that group is reinforced, that group is spiraled upward, that group is spiritually energized. And it's self-evident to you because of what you have done with Guidehouse. It's self-evident to Guidehouse. It's just not self-evident widely enough in the country that when I go to an organization or an organization asks for help, the problem is almost always, whether it's a procedural problem or an organizational problem or the discipline of processes, et cetera, it's always leadership in some form or another. And when you hire the veterans, they bring that through the door automatically. And you just can't pay enough for that.
I'm sensitive to the fact that we have 3 minutes. I have one more question. I'm directing it to Flo. When you were making your transition, what did you expect? What were you looking for in making that transition? Had you specified to a great degree the type of job, the type of role, and the connection of that role and job back to your military discipline and expertise? Or were you wide open? What was sort of framing your thoughts in making this big transition?
Great question. I had no idea. I just wanted to do something I was passionate about, and that was to serve my nation at the time. And so with that, I met with a lot of people. I had a lot of conversations, and I was lucky. I've been, throughout my life, I've been blessed and lucky that I was asked to go to a Nowruz dinner, and the individual I sat next to was Mr. Shed, who was number 2 at DIA. After that evening, he recruited me into the agency, and I went back into the clandestine. Well, I went into the clandestine side, and I found passion again until President Obama put the medal around my neck. And General Stewart, bless his heart and soul, told me you can't be in the clandestine sector of your Wikipedia page. I disagreed. I thought it was a really good opportunity, a great top cover, but I was above my pay grade. But reality was I had to find the next passion again. And here's the thing. Here's what I'll say since we're running out of time. It's fascinating. I'm a criminal justice major degree at University of Maryland. I'm an immigrant. I didn't speak this language until I was 12 years old, and I worked in the Army. I worked with one of the agencies. I was a spokesperson on LinkedIn. I was a chief of staff for the CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes. I ran a $5 billion business on the commercial side for Boeing. And I went into Azure Government Cloud and ran some of their biggest mission settings, and with my friends like Vishal here. And now I'm in the private equity side, and I get to work with unbelievable companies like Big Bear that's doing some really amazing work in the AI/ML side of the house, and they're here with Greg Goldwater. You should definitely talk to that guy. And the reason I've been able to do all that is because of the foundation that I learned in the mountains of Afghanistan in 2009, 2010. The fact that I was able and lucky enough to be given the right and the opportunity to lead men and women in combat, and I'll never forget looking into their eyes, having to make decisions. The number one problem that I see in corporate America is the fact that people are afraid to make decisions. They are afraid of the consequences, and they don't make decisions. They want others to do it. I wasn't afforded that ability in combat. Whether or not we come home or not, we got to make decisions. And I took those lessons, teamwork, respect, integrity, doing the hard work when no one's watching, but also being a decision maker and leading with guts and courage, and then enduring the consequences of those actions, learning from it and becoming better into corporate America. And I've been able to infiltrate, that's the way I call it, and so some of the top companies in the world. Not because I'm smarter or harder worker than anybody else, it's just because I learned that I'm a teammate and I can't win alone. That's what you get with veterans. If you open up your door, you give them an opportunity to succeed, you provide them with the right tools and resources inside your organization, and you trust them when things get tough, you're going to win. Because they're not going to stay on the ground when they get knocked down. That's why this is the greatest country in the world, because of our people. So we need to take advantage of that in our organizations, in our governments, in our educational system, and hire and provide guidance, but also opportunity for leadership to more of our veterans. You just won't be disappointed.
Let's bottle that up. Gentlemen, on behalf of everyone here, thank you very much. And thank you, colleagues, for joining us this evening.